Welcome to the first day of your new reality. Your world, as you know it, will never be the same. It's time to wake up and see the world as it is. Welcome to the Year 2045 podcast. I'm your futurist and host, Rami and in our podcast, we're going to bring on guest speakers to talk about virtual and augmented reality, mixed reality, AI, robots, Skynet, and much, much more. So hang on and let's go. Today, I'm really excited to have on our show Vincent Serpico. Vincent has been involved in the Phoenix tech community for over 20 years. He's worked as a developer, an AI data scientist, a VP of dev, and a CTO. He has also founded a few startups, raised money, and actively angel invests. He combines his knowledge of tech and business at Serpico Dev. Serpico Dev builds software and cutting-edge technology solutions for entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses. They have been around for 10 years, have nearly 25 people, and helped over 100 businesses. Vincent is passionate about emerging technology, especially AR and VR, vision recognition, and voice tech. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you. Thank you, Rami.
Super excited to have you on the show today.
I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit, awesome bio. You obviously have a ton of experience in this field. Have you always been an entrepreneur?
So I've always had entrepreneur blood in me. The family business was back in Brooklyn. It was not a tech business. It was the largest auto salvage yard in New York City, and I worked there as a kid and up until my early 20s, actually. Yeah, so so I've always had a passion there. And then when I worked as a developer and moved my way up, I worked mostly for startups. I did the enterprise for a little bit, but didn't have the passion for the enterprise. Felt like I really couldn't make a difference. So I've always worked for startups. So between small businesses and startups, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely fun being in a startup environment. More challenging. Yeah. Very cool. What got you started in your field?
So I've always liked the ability to create, and using technology to create is just absolutely limitless. The ability to take code and make something happen. We're seeing the world change today in ways that nobody would have recognized 10 years ago, 20 years ago, let alone 100 years ago. And technology affords us opportunities that, even the best futurists cannot imagine what's going to happen 100 years from now. That's why it's exciting to be in technology today.
That's awesome. Very cool. So today I want to talk a little about first facial recognition. So Vincent, can you tell me a little about, tell our audience how facial recognition works exactly?
Sure. So neural nets have catapulted facial recognition into what it is today. Facial recognition has been around for a couple of decades. When it first started out, it just wasn't that accurate. Recently, in the 2000s, neural nets have catapulted in capability, especially with the introduction of what's called backpropagation and convolutional neural nets in in around 2012. That and other type of neural nets have catapulted facial recognition and image recognition, speech recognition, natural language processing to what it is today, and basically have changed the landscape of emerging technologies. And the way facial recognition works is that there are up to 180 unique features on your face, like the distance between your eyes, the distance between your the tip of your nose, your bridge of your nose, your mouth, and all of that. And a neural net will capture a good number of those and make that your unique fingerprint. It also looks at gradients in color and shading on your face. So every single face has various gradients in shading between your pupil to the edge of your eye, your nose, and all of that. And your gradient of shading doesn't change with lighting. It's always the same. So you take the facial recognition, you take the gradient and shading, and now you have something that's extremely unique. The neural net itself will decide what's very unique for you and create your own fingerprint. So the neural net will learn from you and create that as a fingerprint and then be able to identify you differently from other people.
That's pretty fascinating. I think you and I have spoken about this before. You also mentioned about our ears and all the different lines on our faces, correct? And how that is one of the most unique fingerprints. Things we wouldn't even think about.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Your earlobes are unique to you. That's something that's recent, and they're figuring this out. Your earlobes are literally unique to you. Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I
That's
know,
so
right?
cool. So tell us a little bit about how voice can work with facial recognition.
Sure. So voice technology is really coming in to its own recently. I mean, you might remember the Newton back in the late 90s, right? It crashed. It crashed because technology just wasn't there yet. It wasn't there yet. But recently, like I mentioned, with the CNNs, the convolutional neural networks, and other deep learning networks, speech recognition is there. In fact, speech recognition will do a better job of dictation than a human being. Yeah. Both Google and Microsoft surpassed human dictation in the fourth quarter of 2017. So it does a better job. That's why speech recognition is actually something that's very, very valuable today. And when you combine speech recognition with facial recognition, you create an extremely, extremely unique fingerprint. So police right now in China, it's not uncommon to see a cop with an AR goggle on that recognizes your face. The ability to say, all right, this guy just got out of jail, or this guy's social score happens to be a little low. He can't get inside the train station. You heard the social score, of course, right? Yeah. So it's not uncommon to see cops walking around with AR goggles in order to identify you. So the ability for a criminal to get away with something in China is becoming slim to none.
No, that's fascinating. You mentioned the social score. I know that China really doesn't weigh the credit score like the U.S. does, and they have more of a social score. It kind of reminds me a lot of the show Black Mirror, where the one episode, the gal has to have a certain social score. So as people react to her, they rate her, and didn't allow her to get the apartment or have the circle of friends that she wanted because her social score was low. And you watch these shows, you think this is way out into the future. And I was actually applying for a loan, and one of the things they asked for was access to my Facebook. Right. And they wanted to see my level of friends and social engagement. And I thought, wow, it's already here. They're already looking for those things, even here in the U.S. But it's fascinating how China's doing that already now, and it really does impact how you live in China, and of course their database, and be able to indicate if you're going to commit a crime. So it's pretty interesting.
I think we're going to see it a lot more here in the United States and around the world. Like, for instance, Europe is already also adopting the AR goggles and the facial recognition. If you remember, there was kind of an uproar a few months ago with Amazon Recognition being deployed to police forces. Amazon employees basically said, we don't want this. We don't want this type of intrusion on privacy. So there was a little bit of quieting down, but the police are adopting it here in the United States. More and more, they're adopting it here in the U.S. And it's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's absolutely 100% going to happen.
That's interesting. You and I have talked in length about privacy versus convenience. Maybe you could talk a little about that and kind of elaborate that people, I think, tend to lean more towards convenience, although privacy is always a concern. But if it's just easier, a lot of times we give up some of those privacy rights, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, think about that. We scream about privacy. We absolutely 100% want privacy. Let's think about something that nobody ever considers is when you swipe your club card at the supermarket. Can you swipe your rewards? But now you're telling everybody exactly what you're buying, and that creates a profile of you. What exactly you put in the shopping cart? You're creating an exact profile of you. Alrighty, everybody loves Facebook, right? Okay, every single time you upload a photo to Facebook, it scans you. It adds you to their facial recognition database. You're completely giving up privacy there. And this is happening over and over. I am not advocating against the whole privacy thing, one way or the other. Me personally, I'm all for facial recognition. Ubiquitous facial recognition. That's just my flavor and what I like. But I think folks are willing to give up privacy for convenience. I mean, we see it with Alexa, right? And we're seeing it more and more with various businesses.
It's interesting. We talked about voice being an identifier. Can you give me an example of, and I think one of the things I was actually joking the other day was I was yelling at Siri. The voice recognition seems to be a little behind Amazon and I think Microsoft, like we spoke about. And I was trying to, put something in the calendar, and I think I yelled at her and called her an idiot.
Right.
And her response was, "That's not very nice, Rami." And I started to think about it as an AI learning platform. I said, she may never forget this. And one day, if she's an actual robot, she might, say, "Do you remember when you called me an idiot?"
Yeah, right.
So, I think you start to think about those things and they're not going to forget, kind of like my wife. So,
yeah, right. Exactly.
And I think you and I spoke about before how, your kids are actually, your wife actually hasn't being polite. Correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. She insists that, don't yell at Alexa and be polite, because there is there's a reflection of how you act towards the AI, which is a reflection of how you act towards others, of course. But here's the interesting thing. We never tell somebody, don't get mad at the computer screen, or you never really do get all that upset with it. The way you have this feeling towards Alexa or Google Assistant or Siri, and what's going on there, that we're having this type of interaction and feelings towards something that speaks to us versus just a computer screen. It's a whole different level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it absolutely is. Absolutely is. Let's talk a little bit about how you foresee, facial recognition and actually voice right now being used, some practical applications today that you're seeing here in the U.S.
Yeah. So it's all emerging right now. The actual technology for speech recognition, it's there. And the actual technology for facial recognition is there. It's proven, it's there, it works. Now it's a matter of a gold rush of entrepreneurs figuring out how to implement it. And we're seeing it popping up everywhere. For instance, Tampa International Airport this week just rolled out facial recognition for international boarding. And they're experimenting with it, and if it works out, you're going to see it all over more restaurants. More airports. Cali Burger, a restaurant in California, is using facial recognition in order to take people's orders, but then remember for the next time. Last time you had a bacon cheeseburger and fries. Would you like that again? And by the way, chocolate milkshake would go really well with that. People who get bacon cheeseburgers also get, right. There's an experiment going on right now to use augmented reality glasses for blind people in order to do facial recognition. Now think about how useful that would be. Something in the ear would say, "Hey, Rami just walked into the room." Well, isn't that kind of convenient? Yeah. We're seeing really awesome applications. I have a client right now named Defendry, and Defendry is using facial recognition in order to create white lists and black lists of folks entering buildings, schools, and other public places. So let's say that you fire an employee, and this employee is very disgruntled. Well, the facial recognition would pick him up on a blacklist before that person would actually get back into a building, or a student is expelled or something like that. You have a whitelist and blacklist of people, which just makes the job of the security guard that much easier and more efficient.
That's really fascinating. Before we jump into that, one thing I was going to mention to you, talking about like ordering food. I've seen in the fashion industry, they basically I've seen where they've had different displays up, and they actually can, use facial recognition to see if you like that outfit, or, if you're a woman, that dress. And if they basically come back and will say, okay, Vincent didn't like that, I'm not going to show him that again, or I'm going to show him more of what he likes, kind of like you said with ordering food. So that industry alone, from an advertising perspective, seems huge. Let's talk a little bit about defense and, I guess, security. One thing that I found is fascinating, and that I've read about, is being able to, almost like the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, being able to predict a crime before it happens.
Right.
So being able to actually look at someone's face and say, okay, that person, looks like they're upset or angry, and they might commit a crime. Also in how they walk or their gait. Let's talk a little about that and what that means for safety, and how that could be applied.
So what they're discovering now as part of all of this emerging application of what we can do with facial recognition is that your face can actually be a telltale sign of many, many things. For instance, your face can be a sign of early Parkinson's warning. Your face can be the sign, it could be a sign of other genetic disorders that might be manifesting itself that you're not aware of. Your face can be a sign of your sexual preference. Your face can also be a sign of intent to commit a crime. So is it all emerging right now, and they're all doing tests on it, but it's showing in the positive direction that all of this is coming soon. So, you mentioned the augmented reality mirrors where you put something on and they see your face, right? Well, what happens now when there's cameras within the television that watch your facial expression, the nuances of your facial expression when you're watching a television show. So right now, what do? You give a thumbs up or thumbs down for a television show. But imagine if for the entire 2 hours of watching a movie, I see every single part of the movie corresponding to your facial recognition. I know this particular part you absolutely love. This part created disgust. This part you were kind of confused about. Now we're able to create movies or television and other media content based on absolute nuances.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Isn't
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and all this is coming.
Yeah, I love it. Let's talk a little about, I think it was in China, they can actually see how you walk or your gait, and they could predict if you're going to commit a crime. And that's even another predictor, correct?
So, you know what's interesting? I find it really fascinating that we're finding a lot of unique identifiers in a person. So, at one time, before all of this, it was your fingerprint's unique. And that's it. And then all of a sudden, it's your fingerprint and your DNA is unique. Now we're finding out your fingerprint, your DNA, your facial, all the points on your face put together is unique. Your earlobe is unique. Your voice is unique. Everybody's voice is their own fingerprint, and your gait is unique. The way you walk is unique. I can't copy your walk, and you can't really change your walk. You can try to change it, but no matter how you change it, you're always going to have an underlying gait into it. Just like if you impersonate someone else's voice, you're still going to have an underlying tone of your voice in there. So the way you walk is unique to you, but also before committing a crime, you have a certain type of gait. You change your walk from your regular walk to something that's a little bit different, and that can be identified. And China is using that right now in order to identify suspects who may be ready to commit a crime. And this is not in broad daylight, but this could be at night or in isolated areas. A camera will pick it up and send alert to Chinese police.
That's fascinating. And I think you and I spoke about, AI cameras being able to, instead of having a human watching it, the AI is actually watching, identifying, put them through a database, and then identifying that their gait is different, or their facial expression is different. The implications for, think of stadiums or airports or anywhere that, crime or terrorism, could take place. Again, I look at, does art imitate life or does life imitate art? And thinking of the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where, they were able to predict the crime and apprehend the assailant before they're actually able to commit the crime. So it raises all sorts of questions as far as privacy and those things. But from a security standpoint, it seems like a great idea.
From a security standpoint, it seems like a great idea. Privacy, but there's going to be cameras everywhere around me. It's going to happen. There will be cameras literally everywhere. And as facial recognition, image recognition, and all the types of recognition improves, it's going to create a whole different world. It's going to be much, much, much more connected.
Let's talk about 5 to 10 years from now. So we talked a lot about kind of where it is now and some exciting things. Where do you see it in, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. So what I see in the next 5 to 10 years, well, first of all, speech recognition, 100% solved. It's almost 100% solved right now. Facial recognition, beyond solved, it's also going to be able to pick up a lot more nuances in your face. The nuances that we talked about earlier in genetics and intent and all of that, that's going to be solved within 5 to 10 years. But more than that, we're going to see facial recognition literally everywhere. So cameras are popping up everywhere. Folks say, well, are we really going to have cameras everywhere? Well, you think about 20 years ago, there were cameras really nowhere except for, maybe a jewelry store, right? And now we're seeing cameras everywhere. If you have the Echo Show at home, there's a camera there. Your laptop has a camera on it. Your phone has a camera on it. And, cameras can be very, very, very small. And the interconnection of having the cameras allows all other devices to know how you're feeling, where you are, and what you're doing, and what your intent is at any given time. So now we're talking about a connected world that's linked together by cameras, that's able to understand who you are. So that's where I see things going in 5 to 10 years. Much, much more connectivity between all devices that recognize you and who you are.
That's fascinating. Let's go out now. And I know that, with my past guests, 2045 seems like a far off land,
right?
Way far out into the future. But what's your prediction? Where you see things in 2045?
So naturally, when we predict 2045 or we predict, decades into the future, we always start with where we are now and project outward. And if I did that, I know I'd make a fatal mistake. So I'm not going to try that. That never works. What I do see is that I see game changers. Jeffrey Hinton is like the father of neural nets, right? And neural nets is what makes facial, image, speech, natural language processing, all possible, and has brought it to the level today that is just unparalleled in human history. He says that we've reached a plateau and that we need to throw them all away and start over from scratch again with a new type of technology. He doesn't know what that technology is. But the thing is, though, you've got millions of people working on this right now. And somebody's going to be working on the next technology in order to get from where we are right now to where we could eventually go in 2045, the singularity. I know that, what's his name from, who created the Palm Pilot, Jeff, his last name.
It's not Ray Kurzweil?
No. The guy who invented Palm Pilot.
Oh, the Palm.
Yeah.
I was thinking the reading for the deaf device, or blind device. Yeah.
His last name escapes me right now. I read his book on intelligence, and he essentially took his entire fortune from Palm Pilot and has spent the last 20 years building computers that emulate the human brain the exact same way it works. So he's trying it from a completely different approach. And there's others out there who are going to be also trying it from different approaches. So where I'm going with this is that we're going to see technology in 2045 that I think is going to be starkly different than what we're expecting technology to go on a trajectory today, and that we're all going to be a lot more used to it. But I think that we're going to see widespread changes in business and how we interact with each other and things we take for granted and assumptions. I think we're looking at a world that's going to be remarkably different. It's going to make fortunes for some, and it is going to be completely different for those who don't keep up with technology and don't stay abreast with it.
No, I think it's fascinating, especially when you talk about kind of, disassembling what we have now and going another direction with it. It is true, as you look at things, people tend to look at technology as sort of linear, and okay, we went from here to here, and computers used to be the size of a room, and now they're this size, they're getting smaller. But people don't realize, if you read the book Singularity, that it's really more of an arc. Things are moving at a very fast pace now, and by year 2045, everything is going to be completely different than the way we live now. A huge shift in humanity. So it's
what's one prediction you have? Just one. I know you have a lot, but just one.
So I'm a big sci-fi geek, and I love, that kind of stuff. I think one of the predictions I have you seen the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix?
I have not.
Okay. So he's kind of girlfriend breaks up with him. He's kind of lonely. He starts to have a romantic relationship with his voice recognition software.
Right.
Obviously very platonic, and I think it's Scarlett Johansson is the voice of the girl. So, very soothing voice. And one of the things that, Ray Kurzweil talks about in the Singularity book was he just talks about how one of the things missing right now is the, really of AI to create emotion and be able to, have an internal conflict like humans do, but also to react, emotionally like we do. That's something they're working on. But in the movie, in the future, the AI, it acts like a girlfriend. She talks to him and how was your day? And I missed you. And it's a really interesting movie because he really, starts to have feelings for her and falls in love with her. And it's just a voice recognition.
So when we're able to actually create that context, right, of the AI understanding your context and having that emotional friction, and we're able to create this, let's say, holograms that will have the facial expression, how are interactions going to change? How are interactions between human to human going to change? How is interaction between human to AI going to change? What's that going to do for social life? What's that going to do for business life?
It's going to change things dramatically. And I think I'm always thinking about, what industries are going to be disrupted. You see companies like Uber and Lyft that came in and disrupted, the cab driver industry. We see that all the time with companies that come in and really rethink how things are done. The other day I was at the bank and I was watching the tellers, do a repetitive task, and you got this long line of people. And I said, I kind of saw it into the future. And I think year 2045, we're going to have fully functional AI robots in there, doing simple bank transactions. Yeah. Construction jobs, I think, are going to, be given to robots that don't need to sleep or eat or take, breaks. They'll be able to just work through the night and, do construction, build houses. So I think you're going to see definitely at the, as far as the, worker level, it's going to go, but also in the medical level. The Da Vinci, which allows doctors to remotely, work on patients and do surgeries from another state or another country.
Right.
One of the doctors that, was working with it, initially said, the computer is recording everything that I do. And he said, someday it won't need me. And it's going to be able to do the job way better than I can, with a 99.9% success rate.
Right.
So it's kind of scary because you think, okay, well, maybe these are just blue collar jobs that are going to be in trouble. But I think there's a lot of white collar jobs that, are repetitive. And as the AI grows and becomes, smarter, even a surgeon could be out of a job because the robot will come in and it already has the knowledge and it'll be able to, complete the surgery. So yeah, I definitely could go on and on, but I think there's going to be a lot of disruption in different industries, especially at year 2045.
So let me ask you another question, okay? Right now, retail stores are experimenting with facial recognition for customers, okay? You'll walk into a coffee place that you go to, and it'll recognize you as Rami, and it'll see you always order a large black coffee. So then the barista will see on the screen that you order a black large coffee and your name is Rami, and say, "Hi, Rami, would you like a large black coffee again?" How do you feel about that?
I think I feel okay. I mean, when I walk into Starbucks right now, it's kind of like Norm at Cheers. Oh, Rami.
Right.
and a lot of times, I'll go sit down and they'll already have my drink done. I don't even put the order in. They know that I like, my Jade Citrus Mint Grande with 2 honeys and a Grande water. And it's already done before. A lot of times I'm even sitting down, they'll bring my drinks to me because they know exactly what I like. That human touch or that interaction makes me feel important that, hey, they remember not only my name, but also my drink.
Let me take it one step further now, okay? Yeah. Now let's go about 5 years into the future, okay? And let's say that the nuances of facial emotion are solved. And you walk into that same store, and on the screen it pops up that you might walk in with a smile, but we can tell nuances you're kind of stressed out about something, okay? And it shows Rami is stressed. And then she says to you, "Hi, Rami, how you doing? You look kind of stressed today. Can I offer you a chocolate croissant?" Now, how do you feel about that one?
A little warm and fuzzy. It's almost, so I guess there's two sides to that. I feel like that would make me feel really, again, nice and special and important that the AI recognized how I was feeling. Mm-hmm. The other side of that kind of scares me is you won't be able to mask your feelings. So, if talking to an AI and you're trying to, present a certain look or a certain persona, but the AI is going to see right through you.
What does that do for job interviews? When you interview somebody and say, "Listen, you're going to have to, work some weekends here. Are you okay with that?" And he says, "Sure, I am," but you can see he's lying.
Right. I think it's going to be very hard for people to lie.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I can riff on this all day.
No, I think it's interesting, and again, same way I could go on and on. But yeah, no, I think that, again, looking at what's happening now with facial and voice and how far it's come along, it's really fascinating to kind of see the applications now, like we spoke about, for, security and safety, what that does for privacy. I think some of the stuff you're working on is very exciting, especially for, I know you mentioned some of the school shootings that have happened. I think that, could eliminate a lot of those problems, correct?
Sure. So one of our clients, Defendry, is working on something pretty amazing. It's weapons recognition. So the ability to recognize a weapon immediately. So right now, if you go inside of a 7-Eleven, there's a few cameras there, and there's a central monitoring station. On that central monitoring station, you have a guy who checks in on the cameras every hour or two for a few seconds, looks around, things are looking good over there. Okay, now step in Defendry, where literally at the moment a weapon is recognized, the police are immediately called and immediately dispatched. It's a complete game changer. This is not a step. It's a massive game changer that's rolling out.
I think of the shooting in Las Vegas. Obviously a lot of the school shootings. I have 4 kids at home, and so obviously always concerned about them. They had a call the other day that a kid had posted, I think, on Snapchat, that he was going to shoot up the school. So they had a lockdown. I had to go get my son. So it creates a lot of stress, and having something like that, would be awesome, especially if they could predict, a crime, apprehend them before it happens.
That would be good. Kid pulls a gun out of a locker. No one's going to know it until he walks into the classroom. But you have a Defendry-like system out there. That gun is pulled out of a locker. You're able to go ahead and identify it.
Oh, that's exciting. Was there anything else you wanted to cover that we didn't go over?
I could riff on this all day. This is absolutely stuff. I am just so incredibly excited about where technology is going and all of the applications. I say that every entrepreneur, if you own a business, if you own a small business, if you own a startup, know technology, know about facial and image recognition, know about voice, know about all the emerging technologies. If you don't, you're going to get left behind. I guarantee that. And if you know about it, you'll stay in tune with it and have a competitive advantage. So absolutely understand it as an entrepreneur, because the world is going that way.
Tony Robbins, talks about if you're not, constantly improving, self-improving, you're slowly dying. So, keeping up with technology, keeping up with the latest trends is super important. Otherwise, you will be a dinosaur and you get left behind in the dust. So
yeah, especially today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Vincent, so much. I appreciate you coming down.
Thanks a lot,
It's a
Rami.
pleasure having you.
Yeah.
Take care.
You too.